At the Fed, we are squarely focused on achieving the dual mandate goals that Congress has given us of maximum employment and stable prices. While uncertainty is high and downside risks have risen, the economy is still in a good place. The incoming data show solid growth, a labor market in balance, and inflation running much closer to, but still above, our 2% objective. Turning to monetary policy, we face a highly uncertain outlook with elevated risks of both higher unemployment and higher inflation. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. Our monetary policy stance is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties we face as we gain a better understanding of the policy changes and their likely effects on the economy. It is not our role to comment on those policies. Rather, we make an assessment of their likely effects, observe the behavior of the economy, and set monetary policy in a way that best achieves our dual mandate goals. I'm sure that this room full of reporters does not lack for questions to ask, and before answering a few of those, I'll briefly summarize the outlook for the economy and monetary policy. At the Fed, we are squarely focused on achieving the dual mandate goals that Congress has given us of maximum employment and stable prices. While uncertainty is high and downside risks have risen, the economy is still in a good place. The incoming data show solid growth, a labor market in balance, and inflation running much closer to, but still above, our 2% objective. After a couple of years of solid growth, many forecasters have anticipated somewhat slower growth this year. The initial reading for first quarter GDP will be released later this month. The limited hard data are consistent, though, with a slower but still solid growth outlook. At the same time, surveys of households and businesses report dimming expectations and higher uncertainty about the outlook. Survey respondents point to the effects of the new federal policies, especially related to trade. We are closely watching this tension between the hard and the soft data. As the new policies and their likely economic effects become clearer, we will have a better sense of their implications for the economy and for monetary policy. Looking across many indicators, the labor market appears to be broadly in balance and not a significant source of inflationary pressure. This morning's jobs report showed the unemployment rate at 4.2% in March, still in the low range where it has held since early last year. Over the first quarter, payrolls grew by an average of 150,000 jobs per month. The combination of low layoffs, moderating job growth, and slowing labor force growth has kept the unemployment rate broadly stable. Turning to the other leg of our dual mandate, inflation has declined sharply from its pandemic highs of mid-2022. It has done so without the kind of painful rise in unemployment that has often accompanied periods of tight monetary policy that are needed to reduce inflation. More recently, progress toward our 2% inflation objective has slowed. Total PCE prices rose 2.5% over the 12 months ending in February. Core PCE prices, which exclude the volatile food and energy categories, rose 2.8%. Looking ahead, higher tariffs will be working their way through our economy and are likely to raise inflation in coming quarters. Reflecting this, both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up. By most measures, longer-term inflation expectations, those beyond just the next few years, remain well anchored and consistent with our 2% inflation goal. We remain committed to returning inflation sustainably to our 2% objective. Turning to monetary policy, we face a highly uncertain outlook with elevated risks of both higher unemployment and higher inflation. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. Our monetary policy stance is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties we face as we gain a better understanding of the policy changes and their likely effects on the economy. It is not our role to comment on those policies. Rather, we make an assessment of their likely effects, observe the behavior of the economy, and set monetary policy in a way that best achieves our dual mandate goals. We have stressed that it will be very difficult to assess the likely economic effects of higher tariffs until there is greater certainty about the details, such as what will be tariffed, at what level, and for what duration, and the extent of any retaliation from our trading partners. While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. The size and duration of these effects remains uncertain. While tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation, it's also possible that the effects could be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome would depend on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored, on the size of the effects, and on how long it takes for them to pass through fully to prices. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to make certain that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. We'll continue to carefully monitor the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. We're well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. It is too soon to say what will be the appropriate path for monetary policy. We understand the benefits of a solid economy where workers can find jobs and inflation is low and predictable. We also understand that elevated levels of unemployment or inflation can be damaging and painful for communities, families, and businesses. That is why we at the Fed will continue to do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Most importantly, thank you for being here. This feels like quite a moment to be speaking with you, and I want to thank you for your time. He's got it. I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the time to speak with this group of business journalists. Also like to give a special thanks to Heather Long with the Washington Post, who helped make this event possible. So for starters, sir, how's your week been?
Just fine, thank you.
Care to elaborate?
So far, so good.
Chair Powell, yes, thank you so much for being here and taking our questions. You were talking about the economy as being a very strong economy. You characterized inflation as coming down, employment as being very strong still. However, President Trump earlier this week, when asked about the market volatility we've been seeing, said the volatility was, quote, to be expected. This is a patient that was very sick. We inherited a terrible economy. A lot of voters did and do agree with that assessment, or at least in part. I'm wondering how you would respond to that assessment and the disconnect between the story of the data and the way a lot of people are feeling about the economy.
Sure. So let me just be clear at the start. I make it a practice not to respond to any elected officials' comments. So I don't want to be seen to be doing that. It's just not appropriate for me. But the situation, I think, is this, and people, when they're surveyed, they are unhappy about the economy. That seems to largely reflect the increase in the price level that happened when inflation was high, 2021, 22, and 23, largely. Inflation is now back down to much more normal levels. Unemployment is low, the economy has been growing, but people are still experiencing that high price level. In other words, prices don't go down. They know they're paying much more for the basic necessities of life. And they're right that they are, and they're not happy about it, and they're right not to be happy about it. So I think that accounts for the negative sentiment. We, of course, we're looking at inflation, which is the change in prices, and we're seeing that that has come down quite a bit, and that, you know, unemployment is actually low. It's sort of very close to measures of maximum employment, and the economy is growing. So all those statistics are good, but you know, the price increases of the past few years are weighing on people's budgets.